High formation, toss to McCaffrey. Big hole, and he runs out across the 30, breaks a tackle. He's gone. Touchdown! CMC!
CMC 23 finally detonates.
I don't know. I was hoping I was right. And it worked out. So, no, I like that play. You know, anytime we can get juice in the dot and run downhill, I'm always a fan of that. I don't know if it's going to work or not. I like the play, and I don't know. Sometimes you can speak things into existence, I guess.
That's Christian McCaffrey after the win. 49ers slide by the Packers 24-21. They're on their way to the NFC Championship game to take on the Lions. We'll get more into that as the week progresses, but you heard Christian McCaffrey talking about the 39-yarder, a 39-yard touchdown, a 6-yard touchdown, great plays by the offensive line, and then he beat Darnell Savage when it was off to the races. So let's get into all those things and more. David Lombardi does a tremendous job breaking everything down, has great numbers. So you need to check him out in The Athletic, at Lombardi himself. Got a great YouTube channel as well, so make sure you check everything out. He'll give you great insight into the Niners, and he joins us courtesy of the Uma guest line. Hey, David, what's happening?
Not much. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing good, man. We're just trying to decipher things and then get ready for the Lions. Why don't we start with Christian McCaffrey? I know you got a breakdown on that both his touchdown runs, but the 39-yarder specifically.
Yeah, it's called 18 Mike, and it's one of Christian's favorite plays. He guaranteed to Kyle Shanahan at halftime that he would score on it because they script 4 runs and 4 passes coming out of halftime against that specific opponent, and they don't run them necessarily in any particular order, but they didn't get to the 18 Mike play until the second drive because the first drive was a mess there in the start of the second half. That's when Jawan Jennings was accidentally at running back. There was a mix-up there starting with Kyle Shanahan. But once they got their feet underneath them, they ran that 18 Mike play, which McCaffrey really likes because it's a straight vertical pitch back. So he gets to pick up a full head of steam running toward that line of scrimmage. Most pitches are going to have a little bit more lateral movement to them, which means that you're sacrificing some of that speed when you hit the line. But McCaffrey was able to hit the line at full speed, and it meant that he only, because everybody put a hat on a hat, it meant he only had to beat Darnell Savage, the safety who came in. And, you know, if Savage makes that tackle, it's probably your 7 or 8 yard gain. But I've watched the replay so many times, and it's just not as impressive as it was in person. In person, I think that McCaffrey literally did stop on a dime for a split second before reaccelerating. And I know both of you were at the game, so you could probably attest to how dazzling that was in person, to see him stop on a dime, cut, reaccelerate, and just run away from the entire Packers defense. It was a special play from a special player who guaranteed that he would score on that play.
Yeah, I mean, we know the Zorros and the 18 and 19 Zorros and getting wide, and, you know, Kyle's got names for all these that are interesting. And the Mike, is that because you're trying to attack the Mike linebacker? Jake Brendel's block, and you did a great job of detailing all the blocks on the play, but Jake Brendel's hook block on their Mike linebacker, number 7, Quay Walker, is what got him through. And then Darnell Savage is not going to tackle McCaffrey with that kind of, you know, speed and time and space. But do you know where the Mike call comes from? Is that trying to get downhill on the Mike linebacker?
I'm not sure. I'll ask this week in the locker room, but I'm guessing that it is. I'm guessing they're trying to target the Mike linebacker. As you mentioned, Brendel delivered that block. That's one thing that Brendel's really good at. He had an amazing athleticism profile coming out of UCLA, and the reason that Chris Furster recommended him, Furster had coached him in Miami, recommended him to the 49ers was because he knew that that athleticism that he brought to the table would be really good with some of those blocks that the 49ers offensive linemen have to execute, not on defensive tackles and linemen, but sometimes on linebackers. And a guy like Quay Walker obviously is an athletic linebacker. So Brendel, to be able to reach up to him and make that block was really key in that play.
David Lombardi from The Athletic joining us, taking a look back at the win over the Packers, 24-21. Now the Lions this Sunday at Levi's Stadium. I know that Kyle said after the game that he thought that the weather affected the defense, and obviously you had Ward fall down, you had Gibson fall down, so that, you know, footing was an issue. But offensively, how much of the offensive ineptitude, I know Brock went 6 of 7 on that final, but they just didn't look like they were in rhythm until the end there. How much do you think was weather-related?
Well, Brock Purdy has played through 2 rain games with wet footballs, and both of them he's struggled with his accuracy. One was Week 6 in Cleveland, and then we saw this one against the Green Bay Packers. Now, it was wet at the beginning of the wild card game last year against Seattle. Purdy ended up throwing for 300-plus in that game, but I think that the rain generally held off after the very start of the game. And if you remember the very start of that game against Seattle, he was off on a couple throws, uncharacteristically off on a couple throws. So I do think that this is a concern for Brock Purdy and the 49ers moving forward into future years, but the great news for them is that it's supposed to be 70 degrees and dry on Sunday, and if they win that against the Lions, then the Super Bowl is going to be played indoors. And, in dry weather, the only impediment that has slowed Brock Purdy down this year has been the Ravens' defense. So we'll see who they play if they do beat the Lions in the Super Bowl. But I will say that, the parallels between the two wet weather games this year have both featured the fact that Brock Purdy turned it on when he absolutely had to and was accurate when he absolutely needed to be. He delivered what should have been a game-winning drive against Cleveland, but Jake Moody missed a field goal and obviously turned in the game-winning drive against the Packers. He was 6 of 7. The only incompletion was a drop by George Kittle, but, he couldn't have thrown a bullseye at a, it was like a bullseye on the dartboard when he threw that pass to Brandon Ayuk on 3rd and 6, and then the very next play, Chris Conley made it a point when I talked to him about the deep 17-yard out that he said that ball was out before Conley was out of his break. And in a game where it was a slog for the 49ers, historically that's been this franchise's kryptonite, right, in the postseason. You go back to 87 against the Vikings, 92 against the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game, 97 NFC Championship game against the Packers, the 2011 NFC Championship game against the New York Giants. Those were home slogs in the rain. 49ers had lost all those games, but Brock Purdy found a way to turn it around and get that playoff win for the 49ers.
Yeah, the out to Conley from the left hash to the outside right was one of his best throws. But Chris had to play a lot more in this game, obviously, and Ray McCloud because of the injury to Deebo Samuel, and was the 4th play of the game. You referenced the Cleveland game, and the problem was losing Deebo early in that game, and he got the hairline fracture in the left shoulder on the first play of the game. So give me the latest. I know Kyle's going to talk at 3:30, so 2.5 hours for an update on Deebo. We're hearing no break, correct? X-rays are negative on Deebo Samuel, David?
Yeah, and they actually just moved the Kyle Shanahan conference call up a couple hours, so he'll be talking about 20 minutes. So we'll know sooner. And according to Ian Rappaport, he put it out there publicly now that the 49ers believe there's no fracture. The hairline fracture is what got him in Cleveland, and he missed 2 weeks or 2 games plus the bye week before he came back against Jacksonville. So when you look at this for the 49ers, it's a situation where they hope that since there is no fracture there, he'll be able to play. But according to what, it's coming out of the facility, some of the news reports, I think Schefter put something out saying that it's a 50-50 proposition at this point. But no hairline fracture means that it's different than the injury that he suffered on the same shoulder in that game against Cleveland.
Yeah, and I think people misconstrue it, David, because with Deebo, especially in the playoffs, I think there's going to be more. He's going to be more involved, especially in the run game in the playoffs, because they're not saving him for anything later on in the season. And the second thing is he plays so many different positions that when you lose Deebo, you lose multiple players. Not literally, but he's in so many different formations and so many different plays that I think that he's so critical. So you don't want to lose McCaffrey, you don't want to lose Purdy, you don't want to lose any of these guys, but Deebo is so unique that it really throws a wrench in Kyle's game plan, especially just like in Cleveland, losing him in the game that early.
Absolutely. And I could tell you that he was a huge part of the 49ers game plan heading into the matchup against the Packers. And that was really evidenced by that crazy play with Jawan Jennings to open the second half. And that ended up being a verbiage error from Kyle Shanahan. But what happens is the 49ers have their wristband, and they have a bunch of codes for different plays on their wristband and different formations. And Kyle Shanahan actually accidentally added an extra word that he shouldn't have added to the verbiage when he called the play. And I think this is a double-edged sword. I think that this shows how adaptable and how well coached the 49ers are, in that they heard the verbiage from Kyle Shanahan and Juwan Jennings was ready to do his job, and he lined up in the backfield, and he took a handoff. The problem is that the 49ers are so adaptable that if they get some of the verbiage wrong and Kyle Shanahan's not looking up in time, they're not going to be able to call timeout and say, wait, we don't want Juwan Jennings in the backfield taking a handoff on the play. So that was a really interesting mess up in this game that happened, I think, because Deebo Samuel was such a big part of the game plan. They obviously wanted to get a receiver in the backfield on that play, but Deebo was hurt at the time, and they didn't want Juwan Jennings there, but the play accidentally went off anyway.
Yeah, explain a little more about that, because they have the X, the Z, the Y, the F. The X is the split end, the Z is the flanker, the Y is the inline tight end, the F is the slot receiver, a halfback, and a fullback, and they cross-train these guys to do everything. And, without Deebo, and it's Deadpool, running action, 11 Tyson, which is 11 personnel, and, his name is Tyson, but Kyle can't pronounce it, so they call it 11 Tyson. So they without losing Deebo, to follow up on John's point, let's say Deebo can't go in the game, or he tries to play and he gets hurt. He just is not Deebo-like. Explain what they lose there, and then my thought would be play Elijah Mitchell more as a true halfback and use McCaffrey, who's the most like Deebo on the roster that can cross position and use them all over the field, is Christian McCaffrey. So explain the way Kyle lines up his weapons, the chess pieces of the 5 eligibles, and what do they do if Deebo just can't play in this game?
Well, you're exactly right. The one player who can do what Deebo Samuel does as far as adaptability in the run and pass game is Christian McCaffrey. So what you lose when Deebo Samuel's not out there is the threat to go out and run a pass pattern and do damage downfield, and that threat gets the defense to respond with a certain personnel package. And then if Deebo Samuel can flex into the backfield and run, well, you've gotten the defense into a lighter personnel package because of his receiving threat, and then you're running with a power back, essentially, right? Deebo Samuel has power back qualities. You're running with a power back quality against a lighter defense. So I think that's the glory of Deebo Samuel, is that he's not only somebody that brings the versatility of a receiver and a running back, but he brings the versatility of a receiver and a power back. So you have the defense in those compromised positions. But they do cross-train the players because adaptability is such a key virtue of this offense. It's just that Juwan Jennings obviously doesn't have the same characteristics as Deebo Samuel as far as being able to run the football. So that's not a situation that the 49ers intentionally put themselves in.
David Lombardi of The Athletic joining us, Pop and Lund here on the Sports Eater. In regards to the biggest thing that concerns me about Detroit right out of the gate is the way the Packers ran the ball, is the way that Detroit runs the ball, and they're going to use that, and Penny Sewell is going to come from the right side to the left. You did that a lot against Tampa Bay. And with Jahmyr Gibbs, that Jones 50-plus yard run is a touchdown. So how do they shore that up in a week?
The run defense hasn't been good all year, so I don't know how they shore it up in a week. What happened against Green Bay is that the 49ers got better in the red zone. They're really good in the red zone. So when the Packers had less room with which to operate, when things got condensed, the 49ers, I think, were able to take advantage of the geometry on the field and tighten up defensively. And might just be what this defense is. It's last year the 49ers were the number 1 defense in the league. It was a dominant unit. It was as dominant as you'll see in the modern-day NFL. This year they have taken a step back very significantly in that run defense. The coverage might actually be a little bit better. Obviously, there's the Ambry Thomas third cornerback question right now, but I think Charvarius Ward is playing the best football of his career. Diamante Lenore is playing the best football of his career. So in terms of pass coverage, the 49ers have definitely stayed afloat defensively, but the run defense, depending on which metric you look at, it could be down as low as number 26 efficiency-wise. And the Lions are a top 5 run offense, and I think that is the main fracture point for the 49ers of this football game. They're favored against Detroit, but the Lions can hang in there with them if they can play balanced football and run on the 49ers. We saw the Packers able to do it. They hogged the ball for the start of the game, and it really set the tone, right? It really set the tone of a game in which the Packers weren't going to go away. And the 49ers want to make sure that they avoid a similar kind of game flow on Sunday, One can argue that the Lions aren't quite as good and balanced offensively as the Packers were, but they certainly can run. And with both of those backs, you're bringing 225-pound beef with Montgomery, and then Jahmyr Gibbs is bringing that lighter weight but a little bit more slashing speed. With that mix and match, it's going to be tough for the 49ers, but it's definitely one that they have to buckle up and be ready to embrace the challenge.
Yeah, and, there's such a fascinating matchup on both sides of the ball and special teams as well. And then just the head coaches and the decisions they make. I think they're – and we saw this last year going to Philly for the title game with Sirianni and Kyle, how Kyle embraces the foot in football, punting and kicking field goals. Sirianni is aggressive, but nobody's more aggressive than Dan Campbell, going for 2-point attempts. The 49ers are the only team in the league that has not attempted a 2-point conversion all year. Detroit is 3 for 6, and the 6 are the fifth most in football. As far as going forward on fourth down, Detroit went forward on 40 times this year. They were 21 of 40. Only Carolina went for it more. Kyle's always going to defer on the coin toss, where Dan Campbell takes the ball a lot. He took it 4 times this year, deferred 5 times, took it yesterday in the championship game against Tampa Bay. Just when you run all the numbers, and I know you do a great job of the game, just the coaching decisions here, where Dan Campbell is uber aggressive and Kyle just runs it a little more old school and he embraces the foot in football. What do the numbers show on, is it better to be like Dan Campbell and be ultra aggressive, or be more like Kyle, or just wait and see the situations, David?
Well, up until this year, the numbers had shown that there actually was little rhyme and reason to Kyle Shanahan's strategies, and he's actually become a little bit more aggressive, and I think better with that in general. I don't have the exact numbers handy right in front of me right now, but when you look at analytics in general, the movement has obviously encouraged going for it on fourth down more often. Stuff like the 2-point conversions that we see so much more of, obviously pushing the extra point line back to the 15 has influenced the percentages there, and we've seen a ton of aggression from Dan Campbell. I think everybody remembers the Dallas game where they were going for 2 at the end of the game to try to win it, and even after multiple penalties and multiple tries, they kept on trying, and obviously didn't work out at the end. So it's going to be interesting. I think Shanahan has developed and gotten better at the fourth down decision making, where he's gotten a little bit more aggressive over time and maybe a little bit more consistent over time, because there were big time inconsistencies between when he would go for it and when he wouldn't in the past. And I think in general, the 49ers hope that, and I think they think that they're better enough than Detroit to where minute details won't impact the outcome, but it might be close here toward the end. I think the key is, for sure, though, for the 49ers to stop the run to the extent that they're not playing a total nail-biter like they did last week against Green Bay.
Great stuff. David, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll see you on Sunday. It's going to be fun.